Countries like Ghana and South Africa are way ahead. Way ahead. We need to get to a point where, with the knowledge that you have, my grandmother used to do this, used to do that. Now you can go to the university and do research on it and get some product that is Kenyan or whatever you want to call it, or it could be Ethiopian. Yeah. Something that can now be in the world market, world space.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's very exciting.
Exactly. So the future is bright, but only if at all we take that seriously, because we need that framework to support our people. Absolutely. And support the right knowledge to be shared among the people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is Selam and Hello, where stories of joy and justice vibrate with the rhythm of Africa and the diaspora.
We're a relaxed group of people trying to move along. Maybe one day we'll get onto something. Until then we say, hold on.
Selam and hello, everyone. My name is Lilly Bekele-Piper, and as always, I am so glad that you've joined us today. So we are continuing in our series, The Case for Hope. And today's episode, we're going to be talking about the case for health. So you know my story. I grew up in the US, but I was born in Ethiopia. And my mom is a nutritionist. So throughout our childhood, we were one of those families who did not get a lot of sweets. We had a pretty healthy diet. My mom was always trying to reduce sugar, substitute for flour, just trying to make things as healthy as possible. And in addition to the nutritional approach that she took towards our food, the other thing that she did that was so meaningful to me is that she told me so many stories of my grandmother. So we would get a cold and she would say, Imiye used to go to the garden and she would pluck, this mint or ginger or whatever and make a tea. We would get a stomach ache and she said, Imiye, she used to chew on this herb and it used to bring so much relief. So as much as I never knew my grandmother in person, I met her when I was a baby, but she passed away when I was so young. I grew up with the wisdom of my grandmother. I grew up with the wisdom of my mother, showing us how to eat, showing us how to heal. And as I've gotten older, I've really come to value that more and more. Just the beauty of the wisdom of traditional medicine, of indigenous knowledge and understanding. Of course, modern medicine is fantastic. We are very lucky to live in an age where we have so many resources and access to cures that did not exist even 5-10 years ago. But I find myself really looking and seeking out more and more ways that I can be closer to the earth, closer to nature, understand my body, understand health, not as a substitution for modern medicine, but as a complement to it, something that I can integrate into my daily life. One of the ways I've done that, for example, recently is I've just started drinking more hibiscus tea. I've started adding ginger and turmeric and black pepper to my water or to other recipes to try and increase the nutritional value, and also because I understand those properties to have some benefit. So in today's conversation, I'm really excited to talk about the case for traditional medicine, but I do want to say, first of all, two things. First of all, today's conversation is not a substitute for the care of a medical professional. If you have any kind of medical condition, you need to seek professional care. Secondly, we would love for you to continue to share the work of Selam and Hello. It's the single most important thing you can do for us. So please share this episode, like, follow, subscribe, all of those things. It really helps the show. So to continue on this path of the case for traditional medicine, a few months ago, I was at one of my favorite shops, Provisions. If you don't know them, you need to know them. We'll link them in the show notes there over on Ngesha Road. And they had this beautiful book called Using Our Tradition, an Herbal and Nutritional Guide for Kenyan Families. I picked up the book and I was delighted because it was full of all of the stories and information, so many of them anyways, that I had heard from my mom and that were passed down from my grandmother. What the benefits of avocado was, beyond being delicious for a sandwich or a salad, what else does avocado offer me? What's the benefit of ginger or mint? And then beyond that, page after page of pictures and information and advice about the ways that traditional medicine can complement modern medicine today, how traditional medicine can complement nutrition in your life, how it can improve our, day-to-day habits, what can we do to just, enrich our health, and potential opportunities to, treat common ailments with simple herbs and plants from the garden. I am just so delighted that today we have Vitalice Ochieng, who's a senior program manager at the Trust for Indigenous Culture and Health, join us to talk about the case for traditional medicine. Why in this era of modernity, we can still very much benefit from the wisdom of our ancestors, of our elders, and really of the earth that is still very much at our fingertips. So Vitalice, welcome to Selam and Hello.
Thank you so much, Lilly.
So glad to have you here.
I'm very glad to be here as well.
So we are both, I think, fans of Provisions and the work that they're doing in promoting Indigenous culture and practice. And this book is probably one of my favorite things that I have found there. And since I bought it, I have bought it again and again. I have given it to friends. I have gifted it over and over again because it is just beautifully, beautifully done. So first of all, thank you for this contribution. I think it's just an excellent resource for us. Thank you.
Thank you to Lilly for having gotten the book and even sharing it with other people as well.
Absolutely.
Because that has always been our intention, that this message goes to as many people as possible.
Absolutely.
So we are very happy that the message is already traveling.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's just start with, what has inspired the Trust, and then we'll move to the book specifically. Tell us a little bit more about the Trust for Indigenous Culture and Health, how it started and how long it's been around.
Well, from the name, you can tell that it is a link between culture and health. And Trust for Indigenous Knowledge. Sorry, I do confuse my program and the name of the organization.
Sure.
Trust for Indigenous Culture and Health is the name of the organization. And I had a program that is known as Indigenous Knowledge and Culture. So it started way back in 2003. And the founder, who has also been, who is now resident in Kenya, saw the need. There was a gap when it comes to our homegrown remedies and the link between what we eat and the herbs that we use and how they contribute to our health. At that time, I think the whole conversation was about managing HIV/AIDS. So when she started, it was about how can our people also use our own local remedies to manage the condition? Because there was a lot of stigmatization at that time. And a lot of questions started coming up when it came to issues of ARVs and all that. So I like what you have just mentioned, that this is not to replace anything. And in TICAH, what we normally say is that we don't tell people not to go to hospital. We don't tell people that traditional medicine is better than what they get from the hospital or vice versa. We don't do that. We all believe that all these contribute to the health that we need.
Absolutely.
And in TICAH, when you talk about health, it is holistic health. It's not just the physical health. It includes even your state of mind and just general well-being. But we also need to acknowledge the fact that historically, many of us in Africa, especially after colonization, something happened in the cultural spectrum. And when you were also introducing, you talked about, you referred to your grandparents. And this is something that I hear every time. People talking about, oh, my grandmom used to do this. My grandfather used to do this. Yeah. And that tells you one thing, that at some point, something changed. Why don't they say that my parents have been doing this?
Yeah.
Many people refer to their grandparents. Now, people of my age or around the generation of where I belong, our parents were actually born at the time that Africa was being colonized. Exactly. And more so in Kenya around the 60s, that is when our parents were born. And they grew up in an environment where going to school was actually number one priority for everyone. And the first people who went to school and got the what we may call Western education, the first thing that happened is that they got a bit brainwashed, started running away from their own traditions, cultures, and all that, because then they considered them to be backward.
Yes, and the curriculum was entirely Western. There was
Yes.
nothing that resembled what we knew to be wisdom here from the continent.
So then that basically explains why many of us would refer to our grandparents, because our grandparents grew up when this interference hadn't happened.
Exactly.
And the other very fundamental question that we normally ask is, if at all our forefathers didn't have knowledge on how to stay alive, would we be here? Because Western education came, it is documented. It didn't start with the world.
Yeah.
Even in the West, it also didn't start there. I mean, it didn't start with their being.
Of course.
It's something that started after human beings existed. But for human beings to have discovered things and started doing things the modern way, it means they were alive.
Yeah.
What kept them alive? What kept the human race alive all that time? It means that there is some inherent knowledge that they had out of maybe even interaction with their environment and all that, that gave them the knowledge on how to treat illnesses when they were sick, how to stay healthy, what to eat and what not to eat.
Absolutely.
Now, that's what we call indigenous knowledge. It is knowledge you don't get in school.
Yeah.
And once people started going to school, some of them got brainwashed and started thinking that what they were learning in school was better than what they already knew.
Right.
But not understanding also that we also need the indigenous knowledge, even for scientific research. You can't wake up in the morning and start picking all the herbs and testing under microscope or doing all the tests. You must have an idea on what you are trying to find out.
Sure.
So then we need this indigenous knowledge from our communities, our elders, our people who have that little knowledge. They may know this plant, if I mix it with water, it treats something, but they may not explain the science behind it. Now, that's where the science comes in.
And that's what this book does a bit. It
Yes.
offers not just, if you have a cold, do this. It gives you all this background information about, like you said, the science of it. So tell me, at what point did the trust say, okay, let's take what we're doing, and actually beyond the book, I'd want to know what else your contributions are, because this is a significant piece of work.
Yeah, as you may see, this book is a second edition of 2020. There was an earlier one. And then it goes by the kind of work that TICAH does, that we work with communities closely, and communities volunteer to share this kind of information. So we have been working with herbalists from different communities over time. And when they come together, they exchange knowledge. Some of them actually come with the samples of plants, and they say, in my community, we call this, in our mother tongue, we call it this name. We use it to treat this and that. And through those kind of dialogues, we come to realize that the same plant may have a different name in another community, but being used for the same purpose.
Amazing.
And these are people who are not even in charge.
Right.
One may be from the coast, another one is from Turkana. They have never met. They're seeing themselves each other for the first time, but they share knowledge of a certain specific plant.
Yeah.
So then what we said is that this knowledge, we need to kind of bring it together. It is scattered everywhere.
Yeah.
The other thing also is for the benefit of young people who are now, because of lifestyle has changed, and our culture has also changed with time. So more young people are going to school and spending less time with their parents or even in their villages.
Yeah.
So how will they get this information? So we said, okay, let's look for a way of doing that. And so this is one of them, where we basically try to bring that knowledge into one document. And you see, thanks to that, you have been able to get that information as well.
Yeah.
We also, in collaboration or in partnership with National Museum of Kenya, set up a medicinal plants garden.
At the museum?
At the museum.
Fantastic.
If you go to the National Museum, you'll find a medicinal plants garden. It's a very beautiful garden with different medicinal plants. And we use it for demonstration purposes, so that when people are having conversation about the plants that you may read here, they can visualize. If you just say the name, maybe the person wouldn't identify. But when they go to the garden, they say, this grows in our neighborhood, yes.
I've seen this at my show's, garden or something.
Yeah.
What I love about the book, too, is that you include both the Kiswahili translation
Yes.
of the illnesses, of some of the herbs as well, which gives us, and even the Latin. I mean, you really, like I said, it's really exhaustive. Let me ask you, if you think about that medicinal garden, it just comes to mind. I was just at the museum, but I didn't see that, so I have to go back.
Yeah, you need to.
What are maybe your top 3? You have to have this, everyone can grow it, even if it's in a teapot in their home. Your top 3 herbs that you'd say, keep these around.
Now, let me tell you one thing, that some of these herbs, you don't even need to grow them.
Okay, what do you mean?
I mean, if you go into the villages, you'll meet them.
Yeah.
We normally talk with elders sometimes, and they tell us very interesting things. That naturally, there is a way nature takes care of itself. And sometimes you find that there are some plants that grow naturally around your house or your homestead, and you may not know why. You talk to them and they tell you this normally grows along the riverbanks.
Yeah.
And if you look at the use of that plant and the value that it has got relation with the environment where it's growing.
Right.
There are some that grow even where, cattle are grazing, and sometimes actually cattle eat them while eating grass and all that. And they'll explain to you that some of those herbs actually help in also treating the animals. So we wouldn't say there is like this really favorite or this is the major one, because then sometimes also there are 2 things why one would take the herbs. You do take the herbs to remain healthy, prevent illnesses.
Right.
You may also take it because you are unwell.
Right.
And so sometimes not having taken it doesn't mean that you don't know it. It's only that there was no need to take it.
Yeah, sure.
The other thing that is also worth noting is that some of these herbs are actually food.
Okay.
And
can you give us an example?
I'll give you in my mother tongue.
Sure.
There is a vegetable that is known as mito. It has got tiny leaves with very slimy soup.
Okay.
And not very sweet.
Okay.
Not very sweet. But it has got anti-malaria components in it. Now, I saw it in the garden as well. One of the days when I actually started working at TICAH, I could see some of those plants and relate with what my grandma also used to give to us when we had stomachache and all that. But the reason why I pick on this one is because if you go to where I come from, that is western part of Kenya, for maybe a holiday or so, chances are that you'll be bitten by mosquitoes. And when you come back, one of the things the doctor would ask you is that you need to check for malaria. Or after 2 weeks, you may actually fall sick.
Sure.
And they'll ask you, okay, did you travel to the West?
Yes.
And then they'll test for malaria, and most of the time it will be positive. Now, the question that I kept asking myself is, if I just went for a few days and I have malaria, people live there. Right. They don't get treated every week for malaria.
Right.
So what could be the thing? And I came to answer myself that maybe they don't know, but some of the food, the vegetables they eat are actually anti-malaria, and they don't know.
Right.
And that relates to what some of the elders were telling us, that some of these things grow for a reason. So probably also these vegetables have been planted there for that particular reason.
Absolutely.
And that's why when the missionaries came, they had difficulties. You know from the history books that many of them died of malaria, but they found Africans there.
Yeah, imagine. So the book is one way that the trust is preserving culture and heritage. It's one way, by putting it down, like, I can pass it to a friend who can pass it to a friend, and it can be shared. What are some other ways that the trust is working on preserving culture and promoting it as well?
Thank you so much. Because traditional medicine is just but one of the ways in which we are doing this. Because having acknowledged that our communities have indigenous knowledge that is useful, even in the contemporary society today. And the other thing that I may want to share is that when you talk about culture, people think that you want them to live the way the ancestors lived.
Right.
100 years ago.
Right.
Culture is not static. It is dynamic. And any cultural expert will tell you that we never tell people to freeze their culture, like stop. Culture is how people live depending on the environment where they find themselves in, how they adapt to the physical environment, social environment, and the interaction with other people. So even talking about use of technology, it does not come to interrupt our culture. Because everyone uses a mobile phone today, almost everyone, that is, across all the communities. And the way they use the mobile phones may vary.
Right.
And that mobile phone's introduction becomes part of their culture. The only part where it becomes interruptive is, if at all, it comes to violate some of the values or the norms they believe in, and therefore start causing disharmony. If it interrupts how people live in harmony, in peace with each other, then that is when you begin to say, okay, now we need to hold back and see how we can adopt that.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, we have other, because if you go to our website, you'll find that we also work on issues of reproductive health rights. We work with women, children, we work with elders, we work with almost everyone. But it's in the recognition that our cultural heritage contributes to all these things. When you talk even about reproductive health, it is so linked to who we are as a people. Communities come from families. And within a family setup, you can't miss to talk about reproductive health.
Absolutely.
We also have situations where you've had stories of cultural barriers or cultural factors that contribute to things like circumcision of girls, for instance, things that are a bit not progressive, things that kind of discriminate against other people. But we say, if at all culture may contribute to that kind of disharmony, that kind of injustice in the society, then culture also holds a solution to the same.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yes. So then we don't do an activism that fights the culture. You can't win a people by fighting their culture. Culture is so inherent in people's hearts. The moment you mention it, they become defensive.
Yes.
But sit down with them, appreciate their culture, let them celebrate it, and then reason with them. Give them the opportunity to interrogate each other. Ask them, is your culture that unfair? They'll tell you, no, we can't be unfair to each other. That's not one of our values.
Yeah.
Then you'll be like, okay, and when you do this, don't you think this is unfair to another person? And then they'll come to the realization and say, okay, yes, I think as elders, we can sit down and talk about this.
Yeah.
And that is how culture. And so in TICAH, what we do is that we hold those kind of what we call cultural dialogues. We've been doing conversation with the people in Bungoma County.
Okay.
And in Bungoma County is because, according to the government report of 2022, Bungoma County was leading in the prevalence of SGBV and majorly perpetrated by men against women and in intimate relationships. So we were asking ourselves, other than just going and saying, hey, SGBV is bad, stop it, and doing placards and all that, we said, okay, let's reason together. And if it is majorly by men, at what point do men in Bungoma feel that that is the right thing to do?
Right.
Then we realized, okay, one common factor or one common thing that happens in Bungoma is that almost everyone undergoes what we call circumcision. That is not everyone, but men, sorry. Though some go to hospital, others do it traditionally, but they all get through that rite of passage. And there is some teaching that happens during that stage. And in that, so the question is, does anyone tell them that it is bad to be violent against the other person? What do they teach them as to what it takes to be a father, a husband, or as an adult male? So we had those kind of conversations with the cultural leaders, the people who even organized the circumcision festivals and all that. And they came to say, yes, they acknowledge that they talk to these young people about many things. And lately they tell them about finishing education, but they don't talk about GBV.
Yeah.
And they acknowledge that that's one thing that they want to meet all of them as people who organize those festivals to make sure that during that rite of passage, they also talk to their young people about being the protector of the family, being, you know.
Which goes to what you were saying earlier, that culture is not static.
It's not static.
It's not finished now, and it always has room to grow and evolve, and definitely around protection and changing these some patterns of violence. That's where culture can play a major role. I love what you said also about if there is an injustice within the culture, there's also a solution within the culture, and us paying attention to that. I appreciate that. That's part of what the work that the Trust is doing. If we think again now to just even the examples you've just given or the other work that the Trust is doing, does the Trust experience or hear pushback or resistance to some of these traditions continuing? Whether it's herbal medicine, whether it is circumcision and other practices, are you able to identify challenges or barriers to culture actually continuing from perhaps the youngest generations, that are coming up?
That's a good question. And I must say that I think we haven't met so much of that because of the approach we use. Because as TICAH, we normally use the term co-creation. We co-create with communities. And that means that the community is at the forefront. We don't come with any solution ourselves.
Right.
We trigger a conversation. And because we know what the conversation is supposed to be about, we only direct it so that it also doesn't go all directions.
Yeah.
So we make sure that it is focused. That allows us to get the confidence of the people. If there is any disagreement, it would be among themselves, not really towards what we are trying to do.
Right.
The other thing is also that in TICAH we have what we call a listening. We practice that a lot. Listening to us means that we listen more to the community than we speak to them. And so we kind of get a lot of reception on what we do from the community. But talking about things like traditional medicine, for instance, there have been challenges that we all know. And that is the reason why we are also invested in it, because we know if we left the communities alone, they may not win this fight.
What do you mean if we leave the communities alone?
This is to say that we have so many of our community knowledge keepers, people who know, who hold the information around traditional medicine, but they may not have the space to exercise that knowledge.
Right.
They may not have the space to share it. And we also do some advocacy work. We have been working with the Ministry of Health closely to make sure that they create a policy and legal framework where traditional medicine can be given space to thrive.
That's wonderful.
In the absence of that, what is happening? Anyone, Tom, Dick, and Harry, will mix anything, carry it in a 5-liter container, walk around the estates telling people this will treat all the diseases you have. And because there is that idea that, yes, traditional medicine really is very effective, people give them that trust, which they exploit.
Yeah, that's so. I had not thought about the other side of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then it's because of that lack of space where the right people can thrive. What I mean by thriving is this. If there is some elder in Baringo somewhere who really knows the herb that can be used to treat, for example, a wound, all you need is to talk to that old man. We have institutions like Cambridge. We also have Kenyatta University and these other universities that work with some of these traditional practitioners to do a bit of research on the herbs that they use. So all you need to do is to facilitate this old man sharing this information with these institutions and saying, this is what I've been doing, but I also would like to know if it can be done even better.
Absolutely.
Add some value to it.
Absolutely, yeah. That's so important, that bridge between the tradition and modernity.
Yes.
Saying we've done this for all of time, let's test it now in a lab.
Yes.
Let's make sure that these components together work. And I appreciate that you're saying that policy framework is also important, both to protect the practitioners as well as the public from this knowledge and make sure it's used wisely. I think that's quite an important and necessary piece. Because when I see a book like this, to be honest with you, I'm thinking of it as a cookbook. I think I mentioned to you that mine sits in my kitchen with my cookbooks and I pull it out when I'm, not feeling well. But this idea that it actually can't just be, casual. There actually needs to be some structure and some intention around it. So when we think about integrating it with modern medicine, what do you think is that happy balance where we really achieve the preservation of our culture, but we're really looking for that holistic health that you mentioned at the beginning?
Yeah, that aspect of integration is very important. And it's one of the things that we've been pushing also. And it's mentioned in the draft policy. First of all, even aside the policy, there is the bill that has been drafted also. We were part and parcel of that process. We've had this conversation around the bill. And the reason...
Can you name the bill just so
It is Traditional and Alternative Practitioners Bill.
Okay.
It's been there for a long time. And I think that's what I meant by saying that we need to have some push a little bit because I think in terms of priority, it doesn't normally appear at the top.
Sure.
So what is that to mean? What it means is that bill is going to create a council that is going to be mandated to regulate the sector. Right now, what is happening is this. We have KEBS that regulate standards of everything.
Everything.
We have the Pharmacy and Poisons Board, whose responsibility is to make sure that all the medicine and drugs that are being given out to the public are safe. We have the Ministry of Culture that provides licenses to the traditional practitioners because of the indigenous knowledge that they hold.
Right.
We have the county governments that give licenses for those who want to sell, including herbal medicine. Now, all these are people who are supposed to regulate one elder from Kajiado. Now, when this elder meets Pharmacy and Poisons Board, he will not be able to understand the questions because they'll be asking, okay, what is the proof? What is the, did you get your medicine tested?
Right.
This old man doesn't understand that. When he goes to the Ministry of Culture will welcome him because he has got some heritage, some indigenous knowledge that is useful to the community. They give him a certificate that he holds that knowledge. The old man will pick that certificate and display it everywhere that now I'm certified by the government to do what? To dispense medicine.
Yeah.
He may add it to the county permit, business permit, which allows him to showcase his products maybe in the market. In his mind, he's certified. But when Pharmacy and Poisons Board come to him, they'll arrest him. Because first of all, he's not licensed to sell the drug. Maybe he's putting it in a condition that is not safe to the consumer.
Right.
And all that is because we don't have one particular body that takes care of the traditional medicine.
Right.
You cannot regulate traditional medicine under the same rules that you regulate the hospitals.
Right.
Because those are two different things. So the council is proposing to create a body that will take care of all these things. And not only to punish and penalize, but also to provide funding and to provide spaces for even furthering of education. We want young people to go to college and study traditional medicine like it happens in other advanced countries.
Absolutely.
We are importing traditional medicine of China and other countries, which are sold in the pharmacies and very licensed by our government. But that does not mean that as Kenyans, we don't know of any traditional medicine.
Of course.
It's only that we haven't added value to ours, which we could also export to other countries.
That's so true. I've just been noticing lately how expensive it is. For example, we were just taking that traditional medicine garden you were saying at the museum. I'm sure if we were to look at the different varieties there and then you go to the local chemist, you'll find all of those in a pill form.
Yes.
You'll find them in a tablet. And it'll be 2,000 shillings, it'll be 4,000 shillings, and people are willingly buying it. It's definitely growing. The interest is there. But then not having that policy framework sometimes means that we're losing our own value on the ground and not able to really distribute that information. So the trust is serving, I guess, as an advocacy role in this place to make sure that we have that framework, that we safeguard our culture, that we preserve it, and then scale it, that we take it back out there. Are there any case studies you can offer us from this book, from your work, that you would say, we found some important links here that are worth people knowing about? And even a sales pitch for this book, what people would find here that would be a real benefit for them?
I think one important thing that I may mention, if you are in Nairobi, visit our medicinal plants garden every Thursday.
Okay.
We do hold what we call plant talks. And it has become so popular, by the way. Right now, we host like about 100 plus people.
Amazing.
Every Thursday. And we provide that space for different practitioners, herbalists and enthusiasts, people who just want also to learn, share knowledge around this traditional medicine. So they converge at the National Museum every Thursday from around 10 to 12.
Great.
That is an important one for people who are around Nairobi. Those who are not in Nairobi, possibly they belong to some society. Like we work closely with the Herbalist Society of Kenya, with membership across the counties. And once in a while, we do a bit of workshops here and there. This year, we plan to develop a toolkit because we have realized that our meetings can't really reach everyone. So we are working with the Herbalist Society of Kenya to do a toolkit that all this information that we are trying to share among the herbalists can be put in some guideline or some book as well that now they can use to share among themselves in the at the grassroots level. And this is something to do with the quality of the traditional medicine, because we don't want it to be fought in the name of quality.
Right.
And we also appreciate that just like even the vegetable we cook in the house, if you don't warm it, it will go stale the following day.
Right.
The same way traditional medicine can be toxic to the body. We have to let people know that it doesn't mean if it's traditional medicine, then it will never go wrong. It can always go wrong. There are cases of overdose. There are also cases of people consuming plants that can be poisonous. All this is because information needs to be shared among the herbalists themselves. There is the manufacturing practices. Is the herbalist preparing his concoction or medicine in the same cooking pot that he used to cook fish yesterday or some other vegetables? And when people are consulting, are they using the same latrine he's using with his family? You see those kind of things. How are they handling, even with their own hands, the traditional medicine? There are so many questions that need to be clarified. And that is where people cast doubt on traditional medicine, because sometimes they meet the wrong person.
Right.
And then out of that, they feel like, no, we can't believe in this. So we have to pass that information about the quality of the product and the standard of practice.
That's excellent. That's really excellent, because that raises our confidence and it preserves the culture also in a way that keeps it in step with any modern development by saying this meets the same standard of care as the paracetamol that you're going to go take for your headache. So does this, herbalist approach. And I really, truly, this book is divided up in a way where I'm just looking at now head conditions, digestive conditions, skin conditions, and you'll find not only, the condition, but thorough. I mean, this is a science textbook as much as it is a reference book and something that is accessible. And I appreciate that you also include in here the advice to, it's holistic. I see here, for example, I'm looking at something with, what is this one? Skeletal muscular conditions. So in addition to a list of the remedies that might be possible, you also include drink lots of water, eat foods rich in zinc, iron, calcium, don't smoke. You have some just good health advice in here, which I think is so excellent. And I'm so excited to hear that.
And I just wanted to mention something about the same book, that when using it, also refer to it or use it as a reference.
A reference, absolutely.
And there are so many other references that you can also get out there. There are also so many things that require further research and all that.
Exactly.
So let the book be an eye-opener.
Absolutely.
Be curious. Try to ask yourself why. Why is the book recommending this or that? And I would also want to confirm that this book is a representation of the knowledge or the information that has been shared to us by the some of the practitioners that we work closely with. And we have also kind of gone further to corroborate with information from other areas, so that then you can actually use the book as your reference.
Absolutely.
But also to add on your knowledge, so that you also don't just rely on what is inside here only. Corroborate with whatever is...
Absolutely. Do your research, as anything.
Do your research.
Absolutely. Talk to your doctor, talk to your caregiver, look online, read. I mean, all of these things, that's what's, I think, like you said, it's a resource. It's another tool that we have to grow and to learn and to seek better health. So as we close, two last questions for you. First of all, what's the future of traditional medicine, do you think?
I think the future of traditional medicine is very bright. My only worry is that on our African side, we may remain behind, because a lot of things have happened in the recent past, and a lot of things continue happening, especially the advancement in research. We also have many of our people who don't want to come out for research because they say, oh, they are going to steal my knowledge and all that. And we keep telling them some of the information you are trying to hide from them, they already have. So sometimes you need to come forward so that then you also discover something new. But the thing is that unless we create that conducive environment for traditional medicine to thrive, for example, in Kenya, we'll remain behind. We did policy review we had a project with UNESCO in 2021, and this was as a result of the conversation that was happening at the onset of COVID-19.
Yes.
That is the point at which many people realized that the hospital doesn't have answers to everything. So they went back to the elders, and the elders were smiling and saying, we have remedy for these things. These symptoms you're talking about, we have herbs that can deal with them. So we had some conversation with UNESCO around that issue. And then one of the things that came out from one of the international webinars we were participating in was the need to review the policy and legal framework in the region, because without that, that sector will not grow.
Absolutely.
And so out of that review, what we realize is that, first of all, Tanzania is way ahead. They did these things long time ago. They have a law in place. It is during the same time that Uganda realized that they had a draft bill that had been lying in parliament for a very long time, and the president said, "Where is it? Bring it." He signed it. It is the time that now Kenya discovered that, we are still behind. And the bill kind of got fast-tracked, you see? But even up to now, it is not yet taken to parliament. So the longer we take to do that, the more behind we'll always stay. Countries like Ghana and South Africa are way ahead. Way ahead. We need to get to a point where, with the knowledge that you have, my grandmother used to do this, used to do that. Now you can go to the university and do research on it and get some product that is Kenyan or whatever you want to call it, or it could be Ethiopian. Yeah. Something that can now be in the world market, world space.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's very exciting.
Exactly. So the future is bright, but only if at all we take that seriously, because we need that framework to support our people. Absolutely. And support the right knowledge to be shared among the people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Well, this conversation is happening within a series that we're doing called The Case for Hope. So before we let you go today, Vitalice, tell us, what is bringing you hope today? Anything at all that you just think, this gives me hope?
Individually or?
Yes, of course. Anywhere you like, of course.
Okay. I think I always remain optimistic. And what gives me hope so much is that there are so many things that look almost impossible from far. But the deeper you get into it, you realize that there are so many possibilities. There's a point in life I thought, what is there to be discovered? It's like everything has been discovered. Everything has been tested. But then I've come to learn that there is so much more that we still don't know.
Yeah.
So there is still hope to find out new things. When it comes to the issue, professionally, I'm grounded on the issues of community development and specifically on how we can use our own cultures to make life better. And we are trying to push this campaign so that people do not forget who they are, and also to avoid being selective.
Yeah.
That at one point when you are going to dance, we are going for our Luo festival. You are very proud of who you are. So you are eating fish here, you are doing what? Dancing to your local music. Another time you're like, no, I don't think, when you're asked, okay, so in your culture, do you normally do this or that? No, I'm from Nairobi.
Yeah.
So we select when we want to be who we are and when we don't want. So for me, what is important, I don't say that you must identify with what you don't want.
Sure.
Because there could be things happening in your community also that you don't want to be part of. But be part of the conversation.
Yeah.
Because the same community has got the brain and the capacity to question and say, we don't like this. Why can't we change it?
Yeah.
But that takes time. Though eventually it will change. Life only gets better.
Yeah.
So that's what I can say in response to your question. Life only gets better, and that gives me hope for tomorrow.
That's fantastic. Well, Vitalice Ochieng, Senior Program Manager for the Trust for Indigenous Culture and Health, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much as well for the invite to participate in this. Normally, it's a very emotive topic for me. I can talk about it like a whole day non-stop.
We're lucky to have your expertise and your energy because it's so important. I think I feel oftentimes my kids, as much as it's hard to be young, I think right now there are so many more things available. Like this book did not exist for me when I was their age, to hold on to my grandmother's wisdom. If I want that book now, I have to write it. So I'm so grateful that these resources exist for this generation. Yeah. Truly. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And listeners, we hope that you enjoyed today. We are going to be giving away one of these books. We have bought a copy that we're going to give away. So in the comments of this episode, let us know your favorite tradition that you're holding on to. Maybe something that your grandparents taught you, or maybe something you've started yourself, new. Some way that you're preserving culture, put it in the comments, and maybe you'll be the lucky recipient of this new book, or not new book, but the second edition of Using Our Traditions, a herbal and nutritional guide for Kenyan families. We're going to be giving one away for anyone who comments. So listen in, share the episode, like it, follow the show, and of course, we'd love to hear from you. You can always message us on our DMs at Salam with an E, Selam and Hello. And until we meet again, keep hope alive. See you next week.
Worried, anxious group of people trying to move along. Maybe one day we'll get onto something. Until then, we say, hold on. I know it's hard, but baby, you just got to hold on. I know it's hard, but baby, you just got to hold on.